Welcome to TradeTheMBI.com. This is John. This report is for the 28th of October. Well, we talked about it yesterday, that lovely little dead man candle right there. And sure enough, started off decent, but this was all a precursor from that rise we talked about here of the MBI Magenta. When it gets that far escalated, it's just a matter of a couple of days, and it actually is what it turned out before it started to get some weakness. Not to mention we had MBI white at sub-zero level, so we had to have some comeback to it. I mean, it wasn't a huge move by any stretch, but still, it was a little bit of a breakdown, particularly making a higher high when you come back and retest the lows. This is what I mentioned even before we even got to the highs here. I said that the likelihood was we break the highs and then usually you come back and test it. Now, usually that runs a little bit further before you fall back to it. So that's going to put some pressure on the bull side of it. But we talked about how shaky this was leading up to because the volumes had been so low, making new highs. It's exactly the opposite of what you want. You want to break out on wide breadth and strength. And this was certainly not that move. Doesn't mean it can't happen. It just means that this wasn't it. NASDAQ actually fared a little bit better, still closing above its previous day's action. So from that standpoint, though it's MBI reading a little bit softer here, well below the 40 level, but still above the 33. So it's still overall bullish. Euro, not even worth talking about because it's still in bad shape. And oil softened quite a bit. Evidently there was talk of Iran coming back to the table, so I thought that that was going to do anything, but I think that this was just we got a series of positive extremes that had really gotten a little bit excessive. We could see a remove turn back to the 55 and still be within the broader upswing. And that actually big relief on interest rates. I mean, that's a huge drop back down. So that was quite a bullish move that started with that MBI Magenta moving back over here at the 23% when it closed above and proceeded to go there. Beautiful story with Bitcoin, same situation that we've been talking about. These ETFs, as well as the futures contract when it first came out, they were designed to create both sides to the trade, and that more profits would generate from the short side of it, particularly with the ETF that ProShares just announced. I gave you that article on how that breaks out, where the advantage is to the downside because of the way it recalibrates. And sure enough, we had marked on the upswing when we were getting up the highs here in the 67 range. I posted them here, the positive extremes, 62, 59, 57, going down from that daily setup and filling all that in beautifully. That was clean and easy. From a 50K standpoint, started off here with the magenta dot, and we kind of held flat. We had a little bit of a suspension here with those blue dots, the cyan ones over there. Is just that's because magenta was still riding above yellow, even though white was in the lead. But with that heavy white in the lead, expectation would be towards the move to the 0% once we ended up with the breakdown. That happened a little bit more towards the middle of the day and crashed right. I thought we might even support at the 50% on that because that's usually our first target with that setup, but tried to get back above it and it just collapsed towards the end of the day and finished down by the 38%. So the potential for it to next stop would be that 23%, but the likelihood of coming all the way back down to that 45.15. And you break 45, you might get some serious volatility action, particularly as we head towards the end of October. There's always that looming fear of a crash concept, particularly when you're at highs like this. But intraday, it was pretty bland early on. We had some decent buildups that started with a little bit of pops. It wasn't really going much of anywhere. When the short signals came in, it was just literally back and forth. I mean, the expectation was a move to the zero with the spikes of the white MBI over the 40 level here. It had happened previous to that, and that one actually produced a pretty decent move right towards the 0%. And little bit late afternoon pop, but we got the magenta dot that came in perfectly clean on that setup, and that just cascaded to the lows. And really what was great about it too is that even after we got there, we had the violet, which means we had dipped below the negative 13.5 on the magenta of the shakeout here. And as long as it stayed within there, what I look for in that pop is when red MBI is leading magenta and I'm below the 38% range, I'm attacking those heavy when it spikes up to the 40, because that just usually means that your best you're going to get is maybe a move to the 38%, and then it's going to start to trail off. And then once the magenta dip back below 25, new lows were going to be made. The only question you don't know is how far that will go, because the only expectation you have with that white leading is that you're going to get to the 0%, which it just rode the 0% straight down. So that was a beautiful move to end the day. Clean action, all fits beautifully within what we look for. So as always, though, I will continue to update charts and keep you updated. Indicator renewals will be coming out shortly in that. So continuing to work on some of the updates for the paint bar and that to reflect some of these dots in there as well, so that it just makes it clean when you're looking at the visual of it. As always, though, trade well. We'll talk again later. Have a good one.